Hey baby, I hear those blues a calling. It's time for the Frasier on Frasier podcast.
You did that. You did that very well.
Thank you. I've been practicing in the mirror. I've been. It's one of those things where like God. I hope I get it. I've been waiting for you to die so I can inherit this podcast. And I'm gonna change the name to Frasier on Frasier, starring Wes Corwin. That's my plan. That's
and
what
not Adam Frazier.
No, yeah, it's still gonna be Frasier on it. Yeah, it's still gonna have your name, Frasier on Frasier, but you won't be on it because you'll be on a farm with a lot of farmland to run around in. I still don't know how death works. That's me.
I am Adam Frazier. I am the host of Frasier on Frasier, unless something terrible happens to me between now and when this episode gets posted.
Right.
And with me is Wes Corwin.
How are you doing?
I'm doing.
Yeah,
I'm doing well, Wes. How are you doing?
I have COVID. Let's talk about Frasier.
Let's talk about Frasier. Okay. So today we're talking about episode 5, season 2, episode 5. Dukes, we hardly knew ye.
Dukes, we hardly knew ye.
So Dukes, we've talked. I think we've mentioned Dukes. I don't know if we mentioned it on the podcast, but I know it's been mentioned on the show before. It's Martin's hangout. It's his Cheers. It's the bar where he likes to frequent.
It's where the boys are. It is where Martin it wants to be.
So we're
Martin is when Martin is with Frasier, he will occasionally bring up, "Oh, I could have gone to Dukes with the boys," or Frasier will be like, "Where were you tonight, Dad?" And he was like, "Oh, I was out at Dukes with the boys." You know, he enjoys Dukes. The boys is of course referring to active and former police officers that he likes to be around as a former police officer.
It's where all the cops in Seattle go to get liquored up before they go and brutalize some civilians.
It's an old-fashioned cop bar, is what Dukes is.
Right. So give us a brief synopsis of the episode, Wes. What are we in for?
Adam and I discussed this episode, so I will say as a little bit of foreground for you, the viewer, you might notice that in season 1 of Frasier, it was a lot of A story, very, very rarely a B story. This calls back to the first few episodes of Frasier. This is primarily an A story with a lot of scenery. I'll very quickly go over what I think is relevant scenery. Roz assaults a vending machine. She apparently went on a magazine diet. Has a craving for chocolate.
Women be dieting.
Women be dieting. Women be on those 7-day crash diets. And Daphne is dating. She wants to take the.
She's dating Derek Mann from the newspaper. The
old Derek Mann,
the man who wrote the column about how much he hates Frasier. That's who Daphne's going out with. No, they don't say Derek Mann, but they say Derek in the episode.
Oh, I see. I was like, did I miss that? But
I tried to figure it out. Like, did they mention a Derek in a previous episode? And the only Derek I can think of is Derek Mann. So I have to assume that's who she's dating.
She must have met him after the fist fight. They must have hit it off after he hit Frasier in the face. That must have been how that played out. Yeah,
but is that what the episode's about, Wes?
No. So the gist of it, I'm trying to get all the stuff out of the way so we can clear the luge route that is this episode, and we can just slide down it, and then we can get into a discussion.
We're gonna cool runnings this thing.
We're gonna cool runnings. I'm John Candy, and you're the Jamaican bobsled team.
Yeah.
So Niles comes in after Frasier records an episode, and he's like he really wants Frasier to get in on this investment. He has this opportunity, this unique thing where they're getting in on.
It's an investment group. Everyone's pitching their money in, and they're going to be part of some sort of real estate deal.
Meadowood Properties. It's a mini mall deal, and Niles wants to go halvesies on it with Frasier. This is important to Niles because at first he's like, I'm investing in this with my own money. It has nothing to do with Maris. And Roz points out that this is something for him to do so he doesn't feel like a financial eunuch.
Because we've established that Niles is pretty much dependent on Maris for his money.
Right.
Well, even though he runs his own psychiatry practice, for some reason she still has all the power in the relationship because she has all the money.
I don't know if 90s show, like, it's one of those things where I think in a gritty Frasier reboot we'd cover more like what Niles has to do on the day-to-day to keep his firm going. Like, we'd go into more how successful he is. But since this is a 90s show, I feel like it's just going to remain like, of course, Niles has a firm of his own, and that's all we know about it. Would you say we eventually get into the nitty-gritty of how his firm works?
Oh, absolutely not.
I see. Yeah. In the meantime,
it's sitcom logic. Everyone's fine. No one even needs a job, and they will still be able to afford these luxurious apartments and be able to go out and drink coffee in fancy cafes. It doesn't matter. It's a sitcom.
Yeah, Niles, despite the fact, he's free to meet Frasier whenever he wants, whenever it's convenient to the plot. Fine. So, Niles is very excited about this opportunity to take some of his own money and flip it and make some money that is unique to him and completely unrelated to Maris. And Frasier is a little bit unsure, but when he hears how big the return promised is, they're advertising 12% net return.
12 whole percents.
And if Frasier isn't happy with 12%, Niles is going to buy him out, and he can go back to the interest rate his bank is giving him, which is 2%. And then Frasier decides he's in. Great. So from there, it's announced that it's super cool. Like, we're in the deal. Martin invites the boys as they're trying to plan where they're going to go celebrate.
They're trying to pick what boîte they want to go to, and I had to look up the word boîte.
And is it like a restaurant?
It's like a small restaurant or nightclub, according to the Webster's dictionary.
According to our friends over at Oxford's Dictionary. So they list a bunch, and as they're listing how the various boîtes, they eventually reveal as they go through all the boîtes and go over reasons why they don't like the boîtes. After 3, they've run out of boîtes. Seattle has 3 boîtes. And Martin invites them to Duke's. And he's thrown off. Frasier and Niles are like, we've never been invited to Duke's before. What kind of occasion is this? And they almost talk themselves out of going. And then Daphne points out, you could analyze why he invited you, or you could just go and find out. They go to Duke's. If I were to put just a little bit more scenery real quickly, one thing, Frasier is a somewhat famous local celebrity, so when Martin introduces Frasier to the boys are all like, hey, it's Marty's kid, the kid on the radio, and one of them does like an impression of him, and it's very fun, and nobody gives a shit about Martin until they reveal that he married into money.
Niles
married into money, I'm sorry. From there,
it's revealed.
It is revealed.
And to Frasier and Niles.
Through a cheers. Martin holds a cheers as everyone's getting comfortable, and Frasier and Niles start to see the charm of Duke's. Martin does a cheers and reveals that it's been bought out, and that's why he invited everybody here because Duke's is closing, and let's have one more cheers. And may there be a special place in hell for those SOBs tearing it down to build a damn mini mall. And Frasier and Niles are like, oh. And then Martin says, those sniveling rat-faced bastards from Meadowood Properties. And that's when it is revealed that they got into it. And now
right. So that's our conflict for this episode. Frasier and Niles are essentially responsible for tearing down Martin's favorite hangout bar, and they're trying to, I guess, figure out how they're going to tell them, and like B, if there's some way to stop the demolition.
Yes.
So that's what we'll get into. Let's talk a little bit. I mean, are there any moments that you want to talk about in particular, Wes?
I just finished speaking. What do you got? I'll chip
Well,
in
so
as I
let's
see fit.
flesh out this thing where Daphne is going on a date with Derek Mann,
Okay,
because
Daphne go. Yeah,
that does have a very strange end to it. Wouldn't you agree?
yeah. That we plant the seed at the beginning, and we do
Well,
see
first
it
of all,
come to fruit at the end.
right? So like the scene right after the opening, where Niles gets Frazier in on this real estate deal. We go to Frazier's apartment, and just a contrast, I think, how wealthy Niles and Frazier are. We see Martin clipping coupons
Mm-hmm.
for various, meat
For
products and other things.
butter
So
buds imitation udder.
yeah, there we go. So so in walks Daphne, and she was wearing what would you describe? How would you describe the dress that she's wearing, Wes?
Oh, I know. I don't know. It was a dress. Let me let me get a vision. Do we have a picture we can put up on the
Yeah, I'm
screen?
putting a picture up right now. That's there you go. There
Okay,
it's right there.
that
It's
looks like a yep.
it's like I don't know, it's like an Asian dress. It's like, you know.
No, go on, Adam. Where are you going
No,
with
no,
this?
you're not going to do this to me where you get me to say something
No,
that
I'm just interested. I'm trying to follow your lead. Where are you going with it?
it's like one of those silk dresses,
It's
you know?
it's a little it's fetishy for sure. It's of a very
Yeah,
specific style and region. It is very interesting that Daphne has opted to wear this dress.
on her
Uh,
third date, is it? Or no, second date.
this is a third date. I believe this is third date.
No, no, no,
If
because
we're
the third we'll get to the third date.
oh,
This
I see.
the set
You're
this
right.
is like the first or second date, I think. Probably the second date.
This
Um
is
because this prompts, so she's going on this date with Derek Mann, and Frasier brings up the fact to her that, in most civilized societies, or whatever it is he says, that the third date is when, two consenting adults decide whether or not they want to, take things further. If they want to fuck, is what he's getting at.
if they want to bone down, which is why it's important that this is the third date, as Daphne says. This is our third date, so it is for sure the third date. And Daphne is deciding between Heather, a fragrance that is fresh and bouncy as a spring morning, and Forbidden, which is your passport to erotic realms of pleasure. And both Martin and Frasier agree that you need to be going Forbidden.
Right.
Which yeah.
So there's this whole conversation about, when the right time to have, go all the way with someone is. There's this discussion about the fragrance that they're going to be wearing, and then Niles walks in and he smells Daphne because he's a creep.
He is yeah, and he immediately knows what forbidden smells like, which is interesting.
Right. So, and that's where we get into, them, patting themselves on the back about the real estate deal. It's
Yeah,
also right after this that Martin invites them to Duke's for a beer,
to
which,
Dukes.
let's explain the importance of why it's such a big deal that Martin is inviting them to Duke's, or why Niles
For
and Frasier think it's such a big deal.
for 30 years, Dukes has been Martin's favorite place, and neither Frasier nor Niles, his only son, they've never been invited to Dukes. They have never been. They're concerned what this could possibly mean that after 30 years they have been invited to Dukes. No one in the family has ever been invited to Dukes. Not even their late mother was ever invited to Dukes. And there were times she was as Niles refers to her, an old rummy. So she would drink,
She was a
but
booze hound.
never at
Their
Dukes.
mother.
She was an old drunk. She was an old alley drinker. She would drink in the alley behind Dukes, but never inside the building. Wasn't allowed back then.
Right. So yeah, Frasier and Niles are trying to contemplate what this means, and Daphne like you said, she's basically telling them, oh, well, you can overanalyze everything you want, or you can just go down there and see for yourselves.
Right.
I also want to add that so Frazier and Daphne have that discussion about sex on the third date, and I believe Daphne is kind of brushes it off and says, "Oh, well, you know, if you ask me, you Americans have an unhealthy obsession with sex." She doesn't think Derek Mann, the perfect gentleman from the newspaper, is gonna want to do anything on the third date, because that's
he's too busy writing op-eds about people he hates. He's not really a...
He's still writing op-eds about Frasier, is what I think. I think he hasn't gotten off that.
No, I imagine that.
And his editor is furious with him, because you got to write about someone other than Frasier. He's like, this is my art.
I only hate one man for years, and then I'll move on eventually. But for right now, my heat still... But I speak the language of hate, and it flows from me. I can't control or direct it. It just naturally comes this way.
It would be exciting to find out that Derek Mann was behind all of the misfortunes that befall Frasier throughout the series. If he was just in the shadows manipulating things like a puppet master.
Pulling at the strings. No, but unfortunately, I don't think that's how this works. Does it? You've seen later episodes.
I dare not spoil it.
I hope. I very much hope.
So anyway, Niles and Frasier, they go down to Duke's. As Niles puts it, it's a room full of dads.
It's a room full of dads.
It's a bunch of people who look like their father. There's the plaid shirts and whatnot.
They got a certain style about them. They got a certain vibe, and it is immediately identifiable to Frasier and Niles as very Martin-like.
Right, and I thought it was interesting. So Martin introduces them. Niles doesn't get the recognition that Frasier gets until they mention that he married money. We also find out that apparently Martin's been just talking about Frasier, despite never inviting them down to Duke's. Everyone at Duke's knows them.
Everyone at Duke's has a familiarity, and not just... Well, it is interesting that Frasier... Martin introduces Frasier as on the radio, and people immediately identify, oh, it's Marty's boy, he's on the radio. Meanwhile, Martin introduces, this is my other son, Niles, he's a psychiatrist, too.
But you get the sense that maybe Martin doesn't talk about Niles as much as he does Frasier.
Quite as much, but it is interesting that they know Marty, they know Frasier is Marty's boy. They don't immediately know Niles, but they all know Lilith's name, which probably means Martin brings her up frequently.
That was the thing that I was going to mention, was that the thing that like made me laugh out loud in this episode was that Duke says to Frasier, "Oh, we were so sorry to hear about when it turned out your wife was screwing guys behind your back. And what was her name again?" And everybody in the bar is like, Lilith!
Lilith, which is very funny. Apparently it was a slow night, but somehow it was slow enough that they had nothing to talk about, but also good enough night for business that all of these people were there to hear about it. So the math doesn't check out there, Martin.
No, it doesn't. I want to point out the title card for this scene is Where Nobody Knows Your Name, or Nobody Knows Their Name, referring to Frasier and Niles in a reference to the Cheers theme song. But they do all know their names, is the thing. They all know who Frasier and Niles are because Martin tells them all about them.
Yeah, but presumably, I guess they didn't know their names before. Maybe? I don't know. That title card's there.
I think they tried to shoehorn in a Cheers reference where it didn't need it.
I got it. I mean, you could... Why don't you just do that? Why don't you have the next title card be Sam and Diane, even though they have nothing to do... Cliff Clavin, mailman. No! What if every title card just read, no!
Well, why not? And like you said, Martin does the toast. He says, screw those guys over at the construction company that are going to tear down Duke's. And of course, Frazier and Niles, they realize that they're part of that group.
Right.
And they just sort of, they don't say anything at that point. They just sort of comically sip their Boilermakers, and we fade out.
Mm-hmm.
We get our next scene, which is Sleepless in Seattle. Isn't that it? No. I'm getting ahead of myself, aren't I?
You're getting a little ahead of yourself.
We have another scene. We've got, it's Catherine Nervosa.
Right.
They're talking about ways. Niles and Frazier are meeting. They're discussing strategies for how they're going to try to save Dukes, because they don't want this place that is so dear to their father that they just got invited to be torn down. And Niles floats the idea of them, because Dukes is so old, maybe having to declare as like a historical landmark. And Frazier shoots that down and is like, no, they already tore down the Pony Express office to build this place. So we now know that Catherine Nervosa was built on the site of what used to be a Pony Express office.
Yep. There are many historical landmarks in Seattle, and they're all being torn down for Starbucks and more Starbucks. There's not a world where Seattle cares about its own history. They're tearing down everything they can.
Well, what happens when they tear down the first Starbucks, though?
Oh my! Well, that's a historical landmark. They won't.
So not Roz joins them.
Yeah.
And she, presents the very simple solution of, just don't tell him, because you can't do anything about it. They're trying to figure out if there's a way to sort of back out of this whole deal. And apparently the contracts have been signed, the checks have been cleared, so there's no getting out of this.
Right.
So, Roz is saying, at this point, there's no reason to tell him other than to make yourselves feel better, so just don't tell him.
Right.
And she uses an anecdote.
Right.
You tell it.
This situation is like a woman who has one crazy night and cheats on her boyfriend, Roz says. And the only reason for this woman to confess is to make herself feel better. The point being that, like, you can tell, but all it's going to do is absolve your guilt, and then he's going to feel awful. So the best thing she can do is just keep her mouth shut, unless, of course, her boyfriend walks in on her and the other guy because he decides to come home from Portland on the midnight flight instead of driving back like he said he would. So in that case, he's the liar, and why should she feel bad?
So getting very specific with her completely hypothetical example.
Yes. Roz, clearly very imaginative, a very thorough imagination.
Are we meant to discern for this that Roz cheated on her boyfriend, one of her previous boyfriends?
I think that's the only way to take this scene.
Either she was cheating on him, or she was like the other woman.
But if that's maybe. Well, there are two men in this scenario, if I understand correctly. Unless she's gender flipped, in which case, no. I think
it's the first one. I think she cheated on her boyfriend.
I think that's the only way to interpret this. So basically, yeah, Frazier and Niles. I don't know how much power they actually have in this scenario. They've basically put money into a large. I don't mean for this to turn into financial talk, but it seems like they've combined and pooled their money with other people that are all going in for a percentage of this mini mall. I think them taking out the money, presumably they just find another investor, but obviously they feel guilty because their money contributed to this decision to buy Dukes. So subsequently they are racked with some kind of guilt on whether or not they should tell Martin that they have a chunk of their money in the thing.
Right. And Frazier agrees with Roz and basically says, well, you're probably right. There's no point in telling our father that we're the ones responsible for tearing down his favorite drinking spot. Niles doesn't feel the same way. He can't stand the thought of just lying to his father, his face.
To his face.
So it's set up, I guess, to make us think that Niles is going to be the one to blow this whole thing.
Right.
But that's not going to be the case,
Nope.
as we find out in the next scene, which is titled "Sleepless in Seattle." Parentheses. You knew we had to do it eventually. End parentheses.
Yeah, it's cute.
Yeah, cute. I feel like that could have applied to the Cheers reference, the Cheers title card from earlier.
I still feel like the title card should just be Norm every time.
You're right, they should.
It should be every time.
Well, and so in this scene, we see Frazier. It's the middle of the night. He gets up, walks into the living room of his apartment. It's very dark, so he walks over to the piano, and you see him like flip a switch, and all of a sudden a Duke sign illuminates, which I thought was very funny, but the audience just didn't register with them.
No, I think they were fascinated by how it could have happened, like a ghost of Christmas Dukes, like a ghost of Dukes past. They were ready to be taken on a journey instead of it being an Eddie bit.
Right. Well, and Eddie is there. He's sitting in Martin's chair. And because Eddie likes to stare at Frazier, Frazier immediately gets defensive. He's like, "Well, what am I supposed to do, Eddie? It's not like I can back out of this real estate deal." And then Eddie runs off.
Eddie runs off because Frazier is possessed by guilt and takes it out on a dog who doesn't know English. He can't speak to you.
And it's at that point that I believe Martin walks in. Martin, he's also out of bed. He's got his hair all messed up from sleeping, and he's gonna go to the kitchen. He's gonna pour himself a tall glass of milk.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is where again Frazier, racked with guilt, decides to confess to his father that he and Niles are the ones responsible partly for tearing down Dukes.
Yep.
And what is Martin's reaction, Wes?
Martin has a muted reaction initially, and Frazier begs him to get mad or something, to which Martin begins to enumerate the various ways that Frazier has wronged him, including let's see, where is in the last year, Frazier gave away Martin's chair, lost Martin's dog, and demolish his bar. And Martin speculates next he's going to find out that Frazier's the one who shot him in the hip. Which I can't wait for that twist. I was hoping this was like a Dexter moment where like somebody says something like, "Dexter, you're like a serial killer with your how much you love Game of Thrones. You're like a serial killer." And Dexter goes, "Yeah, I love Game of Thrones," and then he turns to the side and he's like, "No one can know my secret that I'm a serial killer." Like, I thought it would be like that. But as we're led to believe, Frazier has an alibi. Frazier isn't Dexter in the show yet, but we might get there.
Presumably he was in Boston when his dad was shot, I think. Is
right.
But so... so that was Martin's reaction. I was actually referring to as Frazier is telling him this news, Martin is pouring a glass of milk for himself, and then as Frazier is begging him to have some sort of reaction, Martin, again very muted, just sort of pours the milk, starts pouring the milk on Frazier, which again I thought was very funny.
He does do that. He does, in fact, do that. He pours milk all over Frazier.
He's like, "I got milk all over me."
Yeah, which is funny because Martin's a cop. But isn't that what they do to the alt-right nowadays? Is they pour milk on them? So sort of a Zoomer kind of thing for Martin to do.
I don't know about that. How do you know that?
Oh, I throw milk on people.
Have you had someone pour milk on you, Wes?
I never have, but I have thrown milk. I've thrown milk, and one time I saw somebody else throw milk at a third person, and I was like, "That's a waste of milk. I would have drank that. That's what's wrong with this economy." Let's see. When I Google dumped milk, I might have. I swear I've heard that, but when I throw away milk thrown, it's a CNN article about farmers. So, yeah, apparently farmers are dumping their milk because of the COVID, which I have. Anyway, Frazier, Martin and Frazier discuss it, and Frazier reveals how meaningful it was they got invited to Duke's, and Martin was like, "It was a beer, it was nothing," and Frazier says it was validation. Finally, Martin has spent so much time at Duke's, and he's established it's a place that he likes to hang out with the guys. And Frazier being invited to Duke's made it feel to him that Frazier was one of the guys Martin wanted to hang out with, and it was meaningful to him in a real way.
It was validation.
And it was validation, Frazier says. And they both apologize, and they both decide to go down to Duke's to have one more beer.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's this kind of this rushed decision. Martin gets all excited. He's like, you know what? We're gonna go down to Duke's, and you're gonna have a beer with me. Even though how do they get in? Like, I feel like that's something they never explain. How do they get into Duke's?
I assume either I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Duke gave Martin like a back key as a frequent customer, or maybe as a cop
I don't think that's how bars work.
I don't think. I don't know how bars work, or maybe Martin. I don't know. Martin maybe just kicked
Martin, you're my best customer. Here, take the keys to my bar.
Here, Martin, you stopped someone from robbing the bar. I would give you a key to the city, but it's a bar, so I'll give you a key to the bar.
You won the drinking contest, Martin. You win keys to my bar. You win my bar.
Anytime you want, even when I'm not here, come into the bar. I don't know.
It was like a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory situation where Duke like hid like golden tickets in people's beers. And like they toured the beer factory where Duke makes all of his beer for his bar, and then all the people died one by one until Martin was the only one left.
And then Martin and his uncle, who's slightly older than he is, they both drink. They both drink the fizzy lifting Ballantines, and they both go in the air. And at the end, Dukes is like, "You drank the fizzy lifting Ballantine, so you lose." And then they kick him out. But then later, he returns the everlasting Coors Light, and he gives it back to Duke. And Duke is like, "You won, Martin. Here, I give you a key to the bar, and now let's get in this elevator." And they shoot off into the sky. You know. So anyway, Martin and Frazier get into Duke's.
Well, no, we're missing something very important.
I'm sorry.
So
right,
go ahead. Before Martin and Frazier can run off to Duke's late at night, Daphne comes home from her date with Derek Mann. And she makes it, it was very pleasant. We went on this very romantic date. We said goodnight to each other. And she turns around and we can see the entire back of her dress is just completely destroyed. Having apparently been sexually assaulted by Derek Mann.
Yeah.
Go ahead and laugh, Wes. Go ahead and laugh about the sexual assault of...
I was not going to do that. I was not going to do those things.
But it is one of those weird 90s moments where it's like, this is not okay to joke about.
No. Well, so I believe it's presented like she's trying to play it off, but apparently things got very physical, and they did have a date, I think.
Is it that their lovemaking was so violent that her clothes just got disheveled? I don't think that's the implication.
I'm not sure, but I think she rolls her eyes, leans against the door. I think the only way I can take it from Frasier's comment, apparently in England it's the fourth date, is that things got heavy and hot and heavy. I think. Otherwise, the scene doesn't make sense because
I think it's that. So she just got back from the third date, and they were earlier having the discussion that the third date is when you have the sex time, and then and so this was the third date. Daphne didn't want to have sex, so hence the fighting and the clothes ripping and what have you, and her getting her ending the date.
Is that the joke? Oh god!
And then Frazier, mugging for the camera is like, I guess it's the fourth date in England.
Oh.
That's how I read the joke.
I see.
Um, very, very odd thing to throw into your sitcom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now that we're sad, let's move on to the next to the next scene, where
Yeah, go ahead.
so Frazier and Martin are in Duke's. They're singing Danny Boy, and it's all dark. There are no chairs or anything. Everything's been taken away because they're tearing this place down. So they're just drinking in the dark and singing, having a good old time. They're talking about how, what are they talking about, Wes?
Well, they're singing Irish tunes, are they not?
Well, they are, but they have a discussion of. So Martin is talking about how he's telling a story about how about Dukes, where when he was on mounted patrol. So Martin
he was on horseback.
Right. Martin had a horse that he rode as a police. He was one of those horse cops that you see downtown.
So as a cop, he rides his horse into the bar. It's really hot, and he's on top of a sweaty, hot horse, and he's a hot guy. He's hot, and he's a man, and the horse is hot, and it's a horse. And his partner gets fed up, and it's like, if you want a beer so damn bad, shut up and get one. So he rides the horse, whose name is Agid. How did he say it? Agades?
I think it's Agades. I tried looking up. It might be the name of a Spartan king, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, so he gets in the thing, and he orders himself a beer. Duke is like, and what'll your friend have? And I say, nothing. He's driving because he's a horse. I didn't bring it up before. I want to point out that Duke is played by John LaMotta, who is Alf's wacky neighbor. You know, right. Alf, the alien that eats cats.
Well, he was also in Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at the front page. I see him in American Ninja. Oh, is he that guy that gets in the clip that gets? No, I don't think he's the guy that gets killed by the shuriken.
I don't know what you're talking about, Wes.
There's a guy who gets killed by a shuriken in a clip of like the White Ninja, Revenge of the White. I'm sorry, but let's move on.
Well, no, let's talk about Alf for a second, because my alternative idea for the podcast was we were gonna, so it's the Frazier on Frazier podcast, but if we didn't do that, it would have been a podcast about Alf, because my initials are actually ALF, so it would have been Alf on Alf.
You know what?
But
in a different world, in
an alternate universe, that's what you would be listening to, audience.
That would have been good.
Getting back to the episode. So they're talking about essentially the conversation that they're having. They're talking about, well, it's kind of an emotional time for Martin, because not only is his neighborhood bar, it's where he goes to meet all of his friends. And Frazier's like, oh well, just because you're not gonna be meeting up with your friends at this bar as often doesn't mean you can't see them just as much. And Martin's like, no, I won't be able to. And Frazier's like, yeah, you're right, because it is kind of, I don't know, change is a thing, is a big thing. and Martin has is very accepting of it. He has a very zen view on it. You can't fight change, you just got to go along with it.
Right.
Frazier also talks about his own bar.
Right.
Cheers.
The is that what that bar is called?
Yeah, the bar is called Cheers, Wes, as well as the show.
I always thought it was called Norm. I thought that's why they yelled it when he walked in. I thought they wanted to, in case he didn't know what the bar was called.
It was Teddy Danson's baseball bar, was the name.
Like a guerrilla advertising thing. In case somebody walked in and they didn't know. No, Norm. Oh, that's the bar's name. Thank you. I thought that was what was going on.
So yeah, Martin says it's like, oh, change, you got to go along with change. It would take, only a fool fights change. And then right on cue, Niles runs in like Kramer in Seinfeld. all kind of wide-eyed and crazy looking. And he says he's got a plan to save the bar. He's gonna do one of those things where he blocks the demolition people from tearing down the building. But Frazier and Martin are like, no, it's cool, we figured it out. But Niles is like, no, I'm going to stand up to corporate America, even if I'm faceless corporate America. He does this whole spiel. It's very inspiring.
He's here to fight the good fight, to show those sniveling, rat-faced heathens there's still some fury pounding in the heart of John Q. Public. And then a wrecking ball smashes through the window. Frazier and Martin duck out, and Niles he has a quick moment where he's like, "Who am I to stand in the way of progress?" and runs to the door. And that.
And I want to point out, so the wrecking ball comes through the window, and the chain that the ball is on is completely slack, which I don't think is how wrecking balls work, because you can't swing a wrecking ball in through a window if it's touching the ground. It was like someone just sort of tossed it through the window. Some Derek man with his huge hulking arms picked up the wrecking ball and just threw it. He's like, "This is what you get, Daphne," and he just threw it through Dukes. Also, you can see through the window that breaks, the background, like all the shops and stuff in the background. It's all a set. It like moves as the ball comes through the window. Yeah. So Niles runs out. Frazier and Martin run out, and that's the end of the episode. It just kind of ends.
Did you realize that the wrecking ball just stays on the floor after they get it in the room? Like, they don't peel it back out. That's not how wrecking balls work. I don't even
I'm telling you, that's not how they work. You're right. I have extensive wrecking ball experience. I studied under the tutelage of Miley Cyrus. I know how they work.
Yeah, my father was Anthony Wrecking Ball, the inventor of the wrecking ball.
So that's pretty much the episode. We do get our post-credit scene where it's Frazier's apartment, and all the people that we saw at Duke's earlier are hanging out in Frazier's apartment, and of course Frazier is trying desperately to keep his apartment clean because they're smoking and putting beers everywhere.
He's handing coasters out to people. He tries to get somebody off of the phone. The whole thing.
All right. So we can expect to see a lot more people in Frazier's apartment from here on out, or maybe not, because this is a sitcom and it has a status quo that we must maintain.
Right.
Yeah. So I can't think of really much else for us. Did you have anything else, Wes?
No, this was a straightforward episode. I think that's about it. I genuinely. Again, we had some depth, we had some other stuff, and this is just a perfectly fine Frasier episode.
It is. Well, we might as well go over our next episode, The Botched Language of Cranes. So when an on-air gaffe tarnishes Frasier's public image, he tries to rebuild it by emceeing a charity event. So that's going to be... Yeah.
The cancel culture Frasier episode. He's ruined. He's got to fix it.
He tells a really racist joke on air, and that's what.
Hashtag cancel Frasier. He says some very insensitive things about a Japanese tsunami, and it is not well received, and he has to fix it. He has to apologize, but he doesn't want to apologize. So instead, he MCs a charity event.
Well, that'll be something to look forward to. Wes Corwin, thank you so much for being here, as you are every week. I don't know why I'm thanking you.
I'm glad to be here. Yeah.
Yeah. So
we'll see you next week, unless I die of COVID, which I have.
And I'll see you next week unless Wes kills me. So we can take over the podcast.
There's a 50-50 shot. Either way, will we both be here? Place your bets.
Okay. Good night, everybody. Frasier on Frasier podcast wishes to thank KACL780.net for providing episode transcripts, and Ronald O'Connell for providing our theme song, Frasier MIDI.